Have you ever had everything fall apart in a single moment, only to have a stranger step in and change your entire world? Today, I'm going to tell you the unforgettable true story of Olivia Bennett, a dedicated marketing coordinator whose career was destroyed by jealousy and lies, until Alexander Knight, the notoriously cold CEO of Knight Industries, witnessed her public humiliation and spoke 5 words that would alter the course of her life forever. "Come with me. I'll handle everything." The fluorescent lights of the conference room felt harsh and unforgiving as Olivia stood before the assembled senior management team, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her portfolio. This was supposed to be her moment, the presentation she'd worked on for 3 months, the campaign that would finally prove she deserved the senior marketing position everyone knew was opening up. Instead, it was turning into a nightmare. "I'm sorry, but this is unacceptable," Miranda Chen, the VP of marketing, said coldly, her perfectly manicured finger tapping against a printout of what should have been Olivia's presentation. "Not only is this campaign derivative and uninspired, but you've clearly plagiarized content from our competitor's recent launch." Olivia's stomach dropped. "What? No, I would never." "The evidence is right here," Miranda continued, sliding several documents across the table. "Side-by-side comparisons of your work and theirs. The similarities are damning." Olivia stared at the papers in growing horror. Someone had taken her original work and deliberately altered it, inserting passages and concepts from a competitor's campaign she'd never even seen. The modifications were subtle but unmistakable, designed specifically to make her look like a plagiarist. "Miranda, I swear to you this isn't what I submitted." Olivia's voice shook with a mixture of fear and anger. "Someone has tampered with my files. The original presentation is completely different." "Enough," Miranda's voice cut through the room like a blade. "I've heard enough excuses. We have zero tolerance for intellectual theft in this company. You're fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you out." The room spun. Olivia grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. "You can't be serious. Miranda, please just look at my computer files, check the timestamps." "I said enough." Miranda's smile was cold and satisfied. "HR will send your final paperwork. I want you out of this building in 30 minutes. Around the table, other executives shifted uncomfortably. Some wouldn't meet Olivia's eyes. Others looked at her with pity or contempt. Only one person, a man at the far end of the table whom Olivia didn't recognize, watched the proceedings with an expression of cold calculation, his dark eyes missing nothing. He was striking in a way that demanded attention without seeking it. Mid-30s, perhaps, with jet-black hair swept back from a face of sharp angles and aristocratic features. His charcoal suit was impeccably tailored, his posture perfectly straight, and everything about him radiated power and control. A thin scar ran along his left temple, barely visible, but adding a dangerous edge to his already intimidating presence. Olivia had never seen him before, but something about the way everyone in the room carefully avoided looking at him suggested he was someone important. Very important. "Wait," the stranger said quietly. The single word carried such authority that everyone in the room immediately fell silent. Miranda's confident expression flickered with uncertainty. "Mr. Knight," she said carefully, "this really isn't necessary." "I said wait." The man, Mr. Knight, rose smoothly to his feet, moving with the controlled grace of a predator. He walked around the table to where Olivia stood, her face burning with humiliation, and picked up the doctored documents. His eyes scanned them quickly, then moved to Olivia's face. She felt pinned under that gaze, unable to look away even as her heart hammered in her chest. "Ms. Bennett, is it?" His voice was deep and cool, with a British accent that made every word sound precise and deliberate. "Yes," Olivia managed. "You claim these documents were altered after you submitted them." "I know they were. The original files are on my computer with timestamps that will prove." "Then we'll look at them." Knight turned to Miranda, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. "Before we terminate an employee based on allegations of plagiarism, we should at least verify the facts. Don't you agree, Ms. Chen?" It wasn't really a question. Miranda's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Of course, Mr. Knight, though I'm confident in my assessment. Confidence without evidence is arrogance, Knight said flatly. He turned to one of the other executives. James, bring Ms. Bennett's computer here, now. The man, James from IT, practically ran from the room. Olivia's mind raced. Who was this Mr. Knight, and why was everyone treating him like royalty? She'd been with the company for 3 years and had never seen or heard of him. Yet Miranda Chen, who'd built her reputation on being untouchable, was clearly nervous. Knight returned his attention to Olivia, and she was struck again by the intensity of his gaze. It felt like he was reading her, analyzing every micro-expression, every tremor in her hands. Tell me exactly what happened, he commanded. Not asked, commanded. Olivia took a shaky breath. I've been working on this campaign for 3 months. The original concept was completely mine, a social media integration strategy targeting millennials through authentic storytelling. I submitted the final presentation to Miranda 3 days ago for review before today's meeting. She glanced at Miranda, whose expression had gone carefully blank. This morning, when I pulled up the files to present, everything had been changed. Key slides were replaced with content I'd never written. Who else had access to your files? Anyone with senior-level clearance, but specifically the only person I sent the complete presentation to was Miranda. A muscle ticked in Knight's jaw. His eyes cut to Miranda with a look that made the VP visibly pale. That's preposterous, Miranda sputtered. Why would I sabotage my own team member? An excellent question, Knight said softly, dangerously. Why would you? James returned with Olivia's laptop, setting it on the table with trembling hands. Knight gestured for Olivia to open it. With fingers that shook from adrenaline and hope, Olivia pulled up her original files. The timestamps clearly showed she'd created and last modified them 4 days ago, a full day before allegedly viewing the competitor's campaign. The content was completely different from the plagiarized version, original, creative, and unmistakably hers. Knight studied the screen for a long moment, then straightened. When he turned to face Miranda, his expression was absolutely glacial. Ms. Chen, you're suspended pending a full investigation. If we find evidence that you deliberately framed Ms. Bennett, you'll be terminated and face legal consequences. He didn't raise his voice, but the words landed like hammer blows. James, I want a complete audit of file access logs for the past week. Find out who modified these documents and when. Yes, Mr. Knight, right away, sir. Miranda's carefully constructed composure cracked. You can't do this. I'm the VP of Marketing. I've been with this company for 8 years. And I own this company, Knight said flatly. So yes, Ms. Chen, I absolutely can do this. Clear out your office. HR will be in touch. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Olivia's head spun with the revelation. Alexander Knight, the Alexander Knight, reclusive billionaire CEO of Knight Industries, the man whose name appeared on the building but who supposedly never set foot in the actual offices. He was here, and he just saved her job. No, more than that. He destroyed Miranda Chen's career in approximately 3 minutes. Knight turned back to Olivia, and his expression softened infinitesimally, from ice to merely cool. Ms. Bennett, I apologize for what you've endured. This is not how Knight Industries conducts business. I thank you, Olivia stammered, still trying to process everything that had just happened. I don't know what to say. Don't thank me yet, Knight's eyes held hers. You've been put through a public humiliation. Your professional reputation within this company has been damaged. Simply reinstating your position isn't sufficient. He paused. Come with me. I'll handle everything. Olivia blinked. Excuse me. You deserve better than working under people who would sabotage you out of petty jealousy. I'm offering you a position directly under my supervision. Executive liaison, reporting only to me. Double your current salary, full benefits, and the opportunity to work on campaigns at the highest level. Knight's gaze was steady, unreadable. The question is whether you're brave enough to accept. The conference room had gone completely silent. Every eye was on Olivia, watching to see what she would do. This was insane. She'd nearly been fired 5 minutes ago, and now the CEO, the billionaire CEO who supposedly never interacted with regular employees, was offering her a job. A voice in her head screamed that this was too good to be true, that there had to be a catch. But looking into Alexander Knight's eyes, seeing the genuine respect there beneath the cold exterior, Olivia found herself believing him. "Yes," she heard herself say, "I accept." The corner of Knight's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. "Good. Take the rest of the day to compose yourself. Report to the executive floor at 8 a.m. Monday morning." He glanced at the assembled executives, his expression hardening again. "And if anyone has a problem with this arrangement, you're welcome to discuss it with me, personally." No one spoke. Knight gave Olivia a slight nod, then strode from the conference room with the same controlled grace he'd entered with. The moment the door closed behind him, the room exploded into frantic whispers. Olivia stood frozen, her laptop still open in front of her, trying to understand what had just happened. In the span of 15 minutes, she'd gone from fired to employed by the most powerful man in the company. And something about the way Alexander Knight had looked at her, intense, assessing, almost protective, made her think this was only the beginning. Olivia spent the weekend in a daze, alternating between excitement and terror. She researched Alexander Knight obsessively, trying to understand the man who'd so drastically altered her career trajectory. What she found was fascinating and intimidating in equal measure. Alexander Knight, 35, had built Knight Industries from nothing after his parents died in a car accident when he was 22. He'd taken the small inheritance they'd left and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar empire spanning technology, real estate, and consulting. Forbes estimated his net worth at $3.2 billion. He was famously private, rarely giving interviews, and had a reputation for being brilliant, ruthless, and impossible to work for. "He's fired 3 executive assistants in 6 months, Olivia's best friend Rachel said over wine Saturday night, reading from her phone. "Listen to this Glassdoor review. Alexander Knight is a genius, but working for him is like being in a beautiful, terrifying tornado. He demands perfection, never forgets anything, and has zero tolerance for excuses or incompetence." "That's not exactly reassuring," Olivia muttered. "But look at this one," Rachel continued, scrolling. "If you can handle the pressure, working for Knight is the opportunity of a lifetime. He's fair, brilliant, and will push you to be better than you ever thought possible. Just don't expect warmth or praise. So he's a cold, demanding perfectionist who will either make my career or destroy my confidence." Olivia drained her wine glass. "Great! What have I got myself into?" "A chance to prove yourself at the highest level," Rachel said firmly. "Olivia, you're brilliant at what you do. Miranda sabotaged you because she was threatened by your talent. Knight saw that. He saw you." She leaned forward intently. "This is your shot. Don't waste it being scared." Olivia knew Rachel was right. But Monday morning, as she rode the elevator to the executive floor, a place she'd never been in 3 years with the company, her stomach churned with nerves. The executive floor was everything the regular offices weren't. Quiet, elegant, with plush carpeting and original artwork on the walls. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of the city. The whole space radiated power and money. A severe-looking woman in her 50s greeted Olivia at the elevator. "Ms. Bennett, I'm Margaret, Mr. Knight's executive secretary. He's expecting you." Olivia followed Margaret down a hushed hallway to a set of imposing double doors. Margaret knocked once, then opened them without waiting for a response. "Ms. Bennett, sir." "Send her in." Alexander Knight's office was massive, dominated by a sleek desk positioned to face floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Books lined one wall, business texts mixed with philosophy and classic literature. Modern art hung on another. The space was immaculate, organized, and somehow perfectly reflected its occupant, powerful, intelligent, and slightly intimidating. Knight stood by the windows, hands clasped behind his back, looking out over the city. He was dressed in another perfectly tailored suit, this one a deep navy that emphasized his tall, lean frame. He didn't turn when Olivia entered, and for a moment she stood uncertainly, unsure whether to speak or wait. "Close the door, Miss Bennet," Knight said without turning around. Olivia did, her heart hammering. The click of the latch sounded unnaturally loud in the quiet office. "Did you enjoy your weekend?" Knight asked, still facing the windows. "I spent most of it researching you," Olivia admitted, then immediately wished she could take the words back. Too honest, too forward. But Knight turned, and she could swear she saw amusement flicker in his dark eyes. "Did you? And what did you learn?" "That you're either going to be the best boss I've ever had or the worst experience of my professional life. Possibly both." This time, Knight definitely smiled, barely just a slight curve at the corner of his mouth, but it transformed his entire face from cold to merely reserved. "An accurate assessment. I'm demanding, Ms. Bennet. I expect excellence and won't accept less. If you work for me, you'll be challenged every single day. You'll probably hate me at least once a week." "That doesn't sound like a great recruitment pitch," Olivia said before she could stop herself. "I'm not trying to recruit you. You already accepted the position." Knight moved to his desk, his movements precise and controlled. "What I'm doing is setting expectations. I don't coddle my employees. I don't offer excessive praise for work that meets standards. Meeting standards is the minimum requirement. But if you prove yourself capable, if you show me you can handle the pressure, I will ensure your career advances faster than you ever thought possible." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Olivia sat, feeling like she was being evaluated by a particularly intense professor. "I'm going to be blunt," Knight continued, settling into his own chair and pinning her with that unnervingly direct gaze. "Miranda Chen sabotaged you because you're talented and she felt threatened. This company is full of people like her, mediocre individuals who have risen to positions of power through politics rather than merit. I'm in the process of cleaning house, but it's a slow process." "And I'm part of that process?" Olivia asked quietly. "You're proof that talent still exists in the lower ranks. I need people who are brilliant, driven, and brave enough to present original ideas even when they might be shot down." Knight leaned forward slightly. "You created an innovative campaign under a supervisor who clearly didn't appreciate innovation. That tells me you have vision. The question is whether you have the strength to execute that vision at this level." "I do," Olivia said, surprised by the confidence in her own voice. "Prove it." Knight slid a folder across the desk. "This is the Meridian account, a tech startup looking to rebrand before their IPO. They've been through 3 marketing firms and hated everything. I told them we'd have a preliminary strategy by end of business Wednesday. That gives you 72 hours. Olivia's eyes widened. 72 hours to develop a complete rebranding strategy. "Too much pressure?" Knight's tone was challenging, almost taunting. Something sparked in Olivia's chest, not anger but determination. She, Dee, spent 3 years being underestimated, 3 months having her work stolen, and 1 terrible morning nearly losing everything. She was done being underestimated. "Not at all," Olivia said, meeting Knight's gaze directly. "I'll have something preliminary by tomorrow morning for your review." Knight's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, approval maybe, or interest. "Then I suggest you get started. Margaret will show you to your office. It's next to mine, so if you have questions, my door is always open. Literally, I don't believe in closed doors. They encourage secrets." Olivia stood, taking the folder. At the door, she paused and looked back. Knight had returned his attention to his computer, already focused on the next task, but something made her speak. "Mr. Knight, thank you. For Friday, you didn't have to step in." Knight looked up, and for just a moment, the cold mask slipped, and she saw something human beneath it. Something that might have been empathy or shared understanding. "Yes, I did," he said quietly. "I've seen too many talented people destroyed by mediocre supervisors protecting their own positions. It's a waste I won't tolerate." He paused. "You'll earn your place here, Ms. Bennet, but you deserve the chance to try." Olivia's new office was half the size of Knight's, but still luxurious compared to her old cubicle. Windows overlooked the city, She had an actual door that closed, and the desk was sleek and modern with 2 large monitors already set up. She spent the morning diving into the Meridian account, and the more she read, the more excited she became. This was a genuinely interesting challenge, a tech company with innovative products but no cohesive brand identity. They'd been trying to appeal to everyone and ended up appealing to no one. Olivia lost herself in research and strategy, the way she always did when a project captured her imagination. She barely noticed when Margaret brought lunch, a gourmet sandwich and salad that Olivia ate absently while sketching concepts. She was so focused that she didn't hear Knight enter her office until he spoke. "You missed the executive team meeting." Olivia's head jerked up, heart jumping into her throat. Knight stood in her doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. She glanced at the clock. It was after 3. She'd been working for 7 straight hours without pause. "I'm so sorry," Olivia said quickly, standing. "I didn't realize." "Sit down, Ms. Bennett." Knight moved into the office, his eyes scanning her desk covered in papers, sticky notes, and sketches. "You were working." "That's not an excuse for missing a meeting on my first day." "It's exactly an excuse." Knight picked up one of her sketches, a rough concept for Meridian's new visual identity. He studied it with that intense focus she was beginning to recognize as his default setting. "This is good, raw but good. You're thinking about generational appeal." Meridian's products span age groups, but their current branding skews too young. They need something sophisticated enough for older consumers but still dynamic enough for younger ones. Olivia found herself standing and moving to the desk, her nervousness forgotten in the face of discussing actual work. "I'm thinking we position them as accessible innovation, technology that enhances life without overwhelming it." Knight set down the sketch and looked at her. "Show me." For the next hour, Olivia walked him through her preliminary concepts. She expected him to interrupt, to criticize, to tear apart her ideas the way Miranda always had. Instead, Knight listened intently, asking sharp questions that pushed her thinking deeper, occasionally offering observations that shifted her perspective in useful ways. It wasn't praise exactly, but it was engagement, real intellectual engagement with her ideas, and somehow that felt more valuable than any compliment. "This needs refinement," Knight said finally, "but the core concept is solid. Develop it further. I want to see full mock-ups by tomorrow afternoon." "Tomorrow afternoon?" Olivia glanced at the stack of work that implied. "That's ambitious." "I don't hire people for realistic timelines, Ms. Bennett. I hire them for ambitious ones." Knight moved toward the door, then paused. "Don't stay past 8 tonight. Exhaustion breeds mistakes, and I won't have you burning out in your first week." "But if I leave at 8, I won't have time to." "Then you'll learn to work more efficiently." Knight's tone was firm. 8 o'clock, Ms. Bennett. Margaret will check." He left, and Olivia stared after him, caught between frustration at the impossible timeline and something that felt uncomfortably like warmth at his concern for her well-being. Working for Alexander Knight, she was discovering, was going to be complicated in ways she hadn't anticipated. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of intense work, impossible deadlines, and a learning curve so steep Olivia sometimes felt like she was climbing a vertical wall. Knight was exactly as advertised, demanding, brilliant, and utterly uncompromising in his standards. But he was also, to Olivia's surprise, fair. When she made mistakes, and she made plenty in those first weeks, he didn't berate or belittle her. He simply pointed out what went wrong and expected her to fix it. When she succeeded, he acknowledged it with a brief nod or a good work that somehow felt more meaningful than effusive praise. And slowly, she began to excel. The Meridian rebrand was a massive success. The startup's CEO called it exactly what we'd been trying to articulate for 2 years, and signed a long-term contract with Knight Industries. Knight gave Olivia full credit in the company-wide email announcing the win. After that, her reputation within the company shifted. People who'd whispered about her convenient promotion after the Miranda incident suddenly took her seriously. Senior executives who'd ignored her before sought her input. and Olivia found herself working on bigger and more complex projects, always directly with Knight. They fell into a rhythm. Mornings were for independent work, Olivia developing strategies while Knight handled the business side. Afternoons were collaborative, reviewing campaigns, debating approaches, pushing each other's thinking. Knight was relentless in his questions, never accepting surface-level analysis, always demanding she dig deeper. It was exhausting, it was exhilarating, and Olivia had never been better at her job. But beyond the professional relationship, something else was developing. Something neither of them acknowledged but both clearly felt. It started small. Knight began bringing her coffee in the mornings, always prepared exactly how she liked it, though she'd never told him her preferences. She started leaving books on his desk that she thought he'd enjoy and found handwritten notes in the margins when he returned them, his thoughts in elegant script arguing with hers. They started staying later at the office, their meetings stretching into evening conversations that had less to do with work and more to do with everything else. Books and music and childhood memories and dreams for the future. Knight, she discovered, wasn't cold, he was guarded. But when that guard dropped, when it was just the two of them in the quiet office with the city lights glittering below, he was fascinating. Funny in a dry, subtle way, passionate about ideas. Surprisingly vulnerable when talking about his parents, or the pressure of running an empire he'd never asked for. Olivia found herself looking forward to those evenings more than she wanted to admit. Found herself watching Knight during meetings, noticing the way he ran his hand through his hair when frustrated, the way his jaw tightened when someone said something particularly stupid, the rare, devastating smile when something genuinely pleased him. And sometimes, she thought maybe he watched her too, caught him staring when he thought she wasn't looking, saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. But neither of them acted on it. Knight was her boss, and whatever was building between them was too complicated, too dangerous to acknowledge. Until the charity gala. The annual Knight Industries Charity Gala was the social event of the season, a black-tie affair that raised millions for various causes. Olivia had attended in previous years as a general employee, standing awkwardly in a corner with her coworkers, watching executives mingle with society's elite. This year she received a personal invitation from Knight. As my executive liaison, your attendance is required, formal attire. I'll send a car at 7. Olivia spent a week's salary on a dress, midnight blue silk that hugged her curves and fell in elegant drapes to the floor. She wore her hair up, borrowed diamond earrings from Rachel, and felt simultaneously beautiful and terrified when the car arrived. The gala was held in the grand ballroom of the city's most prestigious hotel. Crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, and an orchestra playing soft jazz. Everyone looked impossibly glamorous, dripping with jewels and designer labels. Olivia felt like an imposter until she saw Knight. He stood near the bar, devastating in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, and when his eyes found her across the crowded ballroom, the world seemed to narrow to just the two of them. He moved toward her with that controlled grace she'd come to recognize, and the crowd parted instinctively to let him pass. "Ms. Bennett," Knight said when he reached her. His eyes swept over her dress, lingering just long enough to make her pulse quicken. "You look stunning." "Thank you, you clean up pretty well yourself." The corner of his mouth twitched, his almost smile. "Shall we?" He offered his arm. Olivia took it, hyper-aware of the warmth of him through the tuxedo fabric, the subtle scent of his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her want to lean closer. Knight guided her through the crowd, introducing her to business partners and clients with simple efficiency. "This is Olivia Bennett, my executive liaison. She's the mind behind our most successful campaigns this quarter." He said it matter-of-factly, but Olivia felt the pride beneath his words, the subtle message to everyone there that she was valuable, important under his protection. They were standing by the windows, watching couples dance, when a woman's voice cut through the ambient conversation. "Alexander, I wasn't expecting to see you here." Knight's entire body tensed. Olivia turned to see a stunning woman in a red dress approaching, tall, blonde, with the kind of effortless sophistication that came from old money. "Vanessa," Knight said coolly, "I wasn't aware you'd be attending." Mother insisted. The woman, Vanessa, smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her gaze shifted to Olivia, assessing and dismissive in one look. "And who's this? Another assistant? You do go through them quickly." Olivia felt Knight's arm tense under her hand. "This is Olivia Bennett, my executive liaison. Olivia Vanessa Hartley. We were engaged, briefly." The emphasis on briefly was clear. So this was the ex, the woman who'd left Knight after his parents died, according to the gossip Olivia had heard whispered around the office. "Charmed," Vanessa said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "Alexander, darling, we should talk. There's a real estate deal I think you'd be interested in." "I'm not interested," Knight said flatly. "Don't be difficult. It's a fantastic opportunity." "Vanessa," Knight's voice dropped to something dangerous. "I'm not interested in business opportunities from you or your family. I'm not interested in rekindling whatever you think we had. I'm especially not interested in having this conversation right now." He turned to Olivia, his expression softening infinitesimally. "Dance with me." It wasn't really a question. Olivia nodded, and Knight guided her onto the dance floor, leaving Vanessa standing alone with a shocked expression. "I apologize for that," Knight said once they were moving to the music, his hand warm at her waist. "Vanessa has a habit of appearing at inconvenient moments." "The ex-fiancé," Olivia said. "The one who left when things got difficult." "Yes." Knight's jaw tightened. "We were together for 2 years. I thought she understood me, saw me as more than just a name and a bank account. Then my parents died, I inherited the company, and suddenly everything was about merger opportunities and social positioning. When I refused to let her family absorb Knight Industries, she ended things." "I'm sorry," Olivia said softly. "Don't be. I learned a valuable lesson. People see what they want to see. Vanessa wanted a society husband who would expand her family's empire. She never actually wanted me." Knight's eyes met Olivia's, and something intense passed between them. "It's surprisingly lonely, being valued only for what you can provide rather than who you are." "I know the feeling," Olivia admitted. "Jason, my ex, never really saw me either. I was just convenient, someone to fill space in his life without demanding too much." They danced in silence for a moment, and Olivia was acutely aware of how perfectly they fit together. His hand at her waist, her hand on his shoulder, their bodies moving in sync to the music. This was dangerous territory, she knew, but being in Knight's arms felt too right to pull away. "Olivia," Knight said quietly, and her heart jumped at the use of her first name, something he rarely did. "I need to tell you something." "Okay," she whispered. "These past 6 weeks working with you," he stopped, jaw tightening as if the words were difficult. "You've reminded me why I started this company, not for money or power, but because I wanted to build something meaningful. You care about the work in a way most people don't. You push back when you think I'm wrong. You're not afraid of me, and God, that's refreshing." Olivia's breath caught. "Alexander." "I'm your boss," he continued, his voice rough. "This is completely inappropriate, but I need you to know you're not just another employee to me. You're—" "There you are." They broke apart as Vanessa reappeared, her smile brittle and determined. "Alexander, there's someone Mother wants you to meet, a potential investor." "Vanessa, I'm in the middle of something," Knight said, his frustration barely controlled. "It will only take a moment." "No," Knight's voice was cold steel. "I'm not interested in your schemes or your mother's investment opportunities. I'm not interested in you. I thought I'd made that clear when I returned the ring 5 years ago." Vanessa's perfect composure cracked. "You can't still be holding that against me. I made a mistake, Alexander. I was young and stupid, and I didn't understand what we had." "What we had was an illusion," Knight said flatly. "You wanted a trophy, and I wanted someone real. We both failed to see the truth until it was too late." His hand found Olivia's, his fingers lacing through hers in a gesture that was unmistakably possessive. "Now, if you'll excuse us, I'm enjoying my evening." He led Olivia away, his grip firm but gentle, and she could feel the tension radiating through him. They made it to a quiet balcony overlooking the city before Knight finally stopped, releasing her hand and gripping the railing with both hands. "I'm sorry," he said tightly. "That was unprofessional, using you as a shield against my ex." "Is that what you were doing?" Olivia asked quietly. "Using me?" Knight turned, and the look in his eyes made her breath stop. "No, God, no, Olivia, I've been fighting this for weeks, months maybe, since that first day in the conference room when I saw you standing there, proud and hurt and refusing to back down even when everyone was against you." He took a step closer. "I told myself it was just respect, admiration for your work, but it's more than that. It's—" "Me too," Olivia interrupted. "Whatever you're feeling, I feel it too. And I know it's complicated, I know you're my boss, and this could be a disaster, but Alexander, He kissed her. One moment they were standing apart, words hanging between them, and the next Knight had closed the distance, and his mouth was on hers, desperate and intense and somehow still controlled, like he was holding himself back even as he gave in. Olivia melted into it, her hands fisting in his tuxedo jacket, her entire world narrowing to the feeling of his lips on hers and his arms around her, and the way her heart hammered against her ribs. This was reckless and dangerous and probably a terrible idea, but God, it felt right. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Knight rested his forehead against hers. "This is a terrible idea," he said roughly. "Probably," Olivia agreed. "I'm your boss, there are power dynamics." "I know. We should be professional, keep things separate." "Do you want to?" Olivia pulled back enough to look into his eyes. "Keep things separate." Knight's jaw tightened. "No, I really don't." "Then don't." Olivia's hands came up to frame his face. "We're both adults. We can navigate this carefully. But Alexander, I don't want to pretend anymore that what we have is just professional." Knight's arms tightened around her waist. "If we do this, we do it right. No secrets, no games. We tell HR, we maintain appropriate boundaries at work, and we keep the relationship separate from business decisions." "Agreed." "And Olivia," his eyes were intense, almost vulnerable, "if this goes wrong, if I do something that makes you uncomfortable or crosses a line, you tell me immediately. I won't have you feeling pressured or trapped." "I promise," Olivia smiled. "Now are you going to kiss me again, or are we going to spend the rest of the night negotiating terms?" Knight's smile, his real smile, the one she so rarely saw, was devastating. "I think I can manage both." He kissed her again, slower this time, thorough and deep, and Olivia felt like she was falling and flying at the same time. When they finally returned to the gala, hand in hand, Olivia saw Vanessa watching from across the room with an expression of shock and fury. But she didn't care. Let people talk. Let them whisper about the executive liaison and the CEO. She'd been fired, humiliated, and nearly destroyed. And Alexander Knight had stepped in, had seen her worth when everyone else saw only scandal. He'd given her a chance, pushed her to be better, and somehow along the way, they'd both found something neither expected. As Knight pulled her back onto the dance floor, his arms around her and his eyes only for her, Olivia realized that sometimes the worst moments lead to the best outcomes. That being fired unfairly had led her exactly where she was supposed to be. In the arms of the cold CEO, who turned out to have the warmest heart she'd ever known. 6 months later, Olivia stood in Knight's office. Their office now, since she'd essentially moved in with how much time they spent working side by side, reviewing the latest campaign results on her tablet. Knight was at his desk, frowning at a contract, occasionally running his hand through his hair in the gesture she'd come to recognize as frustration. "Problem?" she asked. "The Singapore deal is stalling. They want more concessions than I'm willing to give." He looked up, and his expression softened the way it always did when his eyes landed on her. "How are the Meridian expansion numbers?" "Excellent, they want to sign for another year." Olivia moved to his desk, perching on the edge the way she'd taken to doing, a casual intimacy that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. "You know what this means. That you're officially the most successful executive liaison in the company's history." That we're going to have to hire more staff. I can't keep handling accounts of this size alone. Knight's hand found her knee, his thumb tracing absent circles. Then we'll hire more staff. You'll build your own team. Hell, I'll create a whole new division if that's what it takes. Alexander Knight, are you trying to give me a promotion? I'm trying to make sure you don't burn out. His eyes were serious. You've accomplished more in 6 months than most executives do in years. You deserve recognition for that, and a team that matches your ambitions. Olivia leaned down and kissed him softly. Have I mentioned recently that you're an amazing boss? You're not supposed to kiss your boss, Knight said, but he was smiling. You're not just my boss. Olivia's hand found his, their fingers lacing together. You're also the man who saved my career, pushed me to be better than I thought possible, and somehow convinced me that cold, demanding CEOs can actually be warm and generous and— Don't ruin my reputation, Knight interrupted, pulling her into his lap. I have an image to maintain, cold and unapproachable, remember. Your secret is safe with me. Olivia wrapped her arms around his neck. Though I think Margaret suspects, she keeps smiling at me in that knowing way. Margaret has suspected since the gala when I came back from the balcony with your lipstick on my collar. Knight's arms tightened around her waist. I'm fairly certain she's been running interference to give us privacy. We should give her a raise. Already done twice. They sat there for a moment in comfortable silence, the city stretching out below them through the floor-to-ceiling windows. So much had changed since that terrible day in the conference room. Olivia had her dream job, her confidence back, and was building a career beyond anything she'd imagined. And she had Alexander, complicated, brilliant, unexpectedly tender Alexander, who'd seen her at her lowest and chosen to lift her up rather than walk past. Thank you, Olivia said softly. Knight pulled back to look at her. For what? For stepping in that day, for saying, come with me, I'll handle everything, for seeing me when everyone else saw a scandal. Knight's expression turned serious, his hand coming up to cup her face. Olivia, you're not something I handled. You're someone I chose, someone I continue to choose every single day. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. You saved yourself that day by having the courage to stand your ground. I just made sure you had the chance to prove what you could do. We make a good team, Olivia said. The best, Knight agreed, then softer, I love you. Olivia's breath caught. They'd said it before, but it never failed to make her heart race. This powerful, guarded man opening himself up, letting himself be vulnerable. I love you too, she whispered. Knight kissed her then, deep and thorough, and Olivia thought about how strange life was. How the worst day of her career had led to the best relationship of her life. How being fired unfairly had put her exactly where she was supposed to be. In the arms of the man who'd promised to handle everything, and who'd kept that promise in ways neither of them could have predicted.